Explained that those that are making a mistake in the way of viewing reality, that Hashem is not involved in the world, is that they compare the way that God is involved in the world and creates to the way that a human being creates. So the error lies in the following, that a human being, when he creates, when he makes a Kiddush cup, he takes a mold of silver and he fashions the silver and turns it into a Kiddush cup. And then when the Kiddush cup maker decides to go to the shuk and pick up some lunch, the Kiddush cup stays on the shelf. Doesn't need constant input from the maker. It's not the Kiddush cup is like, no, don't leave me. Don't. The Kiddush cup is there. It's okay. And he can come back and he can see the Kiddush cup and it's there. And the error lies in that the Kiddush cup maker is making something from something. It's taking a hunk of silver, fashioning it, changing it into a Kiddush cup. But you could burn that Kiddush cup down and make it back into silver. Just a hunk of a silver bar. That's how the United States mints silver dollars. They take silver and they mint it into a coin. They didn't make silver coins. The silver coins are there without the constant input of the mint. They're still there. And that silver can be turned into a Kiddush cup. I mean, it's just silver, just a troy ounce, just bullion, just piece of silver. So those that err in their understanding of the way that God creates the world is they think that God created the world something from something. And therefore, they have the watchmaker idea that God can make a world, wind it up, and just depart. And the watch will just run on its own. The problem is that that's not the way God creates. God doesn't create the world something from something. God creates the world something from nothing. And something from nothing means constant creation. God is constantly creating the world something from nothing. Which means, is there such a thing as God leaving the Kiddush cup and the Kiddush cup still existing? Leaving the world, there's no such thing. If God removes his constant creation from the creation, there's no more creation. It has to be ongoing input. Remember the mashal we gave of the rock being chucked up in the air? You chuck a rock all the way up in the air. How long will the rock continue to go up in the air for? In so long as there's enough kinetic energy in the rock pushing it forward. But as soon as that runs out, what's the natural state of the rock? To rush back down. It will naturally leave that state. So too creation. If creation doesn't have constant input from the creator, the natural state of the creation is just to revert back to nothingness. It means the creation needs constant input. Okay? Now look what the Rebbe is going to do. Shehu yesh me'ayin, second line. V'hu pele gadol, the creation of existence is a wondrous act, a pele gadol, yoyse mekriyas yamsuf, more than the splitting of the sea. We're going to talk today about the splitting of the sea. And we're going to actually see the Tanya's opinion on how the sea was split. Remember Venus yesterday? Venus! Here it comes again. Miraculous. Right? Just when the Jews got to the Red Sea and needed the sea to split, good thing Venus was there to bring that amount of gravitational pull to draw the waters upwards. And what timing 40 years later, exactly when the Jews are going to come into the Holy Land, and Joshua needs an extra long day and stops the sun in the sky, and in China there's reports of an extra long night. Exactly at that moment, is that Venus again? Yeah, let's go Venus. That would be a natural explanation. The Tanya is going to offer that Hashem, in the splitting of the sea, used natural means to do it, which is the opinion of the Rashbam and other Rishonim. But look the way that he's going to dissect the experience of the splitting of the sea to show you the power of necessary ongoing creation, and that all of creation is dependent on the Creator every second. And if the Creator withdraws energy and input for one moment, creation will cease to exist. This is all the topic of God's oneness and His unity. That creation is not a separate part from the Creator. It's all one. Okay? Al derech mashal. So let's talk about the splitting of the sea. You know how it happened? Says the Baal Tanya. Shahoylech Hashem es hayam, that Hashem brought to the sea, beruach kadim, an easterly wind, aza kol alayla. If you notice the psukim, there was an easterly wind coming, rushing to the sea, all night, very powerful, kol alayla, v'yavoku amayim, and the water, because the wind was so strong, made the water go up into the sky, kamoy like a mound, v'kachoyma, like walls. So according to Baal Tanya, the way he's explaining it, is that Hashem brought an easterly wind. Now, you ever blown water in a cup? Does it move based on the blowing?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. You could blow down in a cup. Will the water start going up?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll start going up. What if it's really strong wind? Will it go up even more?
Yeah.
What if it's really strong wind?
Blow the water out of the cup.
It'll blow right out of the cup. You know, if you take like, one of the guys that are like blowing the leaves, cleaning up you blow that into a cup. Okay, the detail of the Jews being able to cross through the Red Sea and all the other things going on, that's pretty good. Like, Venus knew what it was doing. Okay? So, but the way that the Baal Tanya is explaining, he's going with the Rashbam, that the splitting of the water was God bringing a wind. The wind was directed, but it was wind. It was through a wind. It wasn't as if it was a non-windy day and God just made the walls stand up. God used the wind. But pretty good, control of the wind, if you ask me. And exactly as the Yidden are going through, it's crashing down on the ancient Egyptians. That's pretty impressive timing in the whole story. Okay? So listen to this. Ve'ilu hifsik Hashem es haruach karega, if Hashem would stop the wind for 1 second, as the wall of water is straight up, what would happen? Hayu hamayim chayzrim v'nigarim b'moired kedarkin v'tivim. The water would immediately rush down like a slope. It would just go whoop. Because water goes downwards. The properties of water are that water goes down, right?
It's also a nice that the wind didn't even push the people down.
Okay, yeah, also fine. Exactly. It's amazingly placed wind that just exactly pushed and moved the water up. But it was by a wind, a very strong wind. A very strong wind. And if the wind would leave, in 1 second, the water would go back down. I remember being in science class. I remember one of my science teachers in middle school, maybe 6th grade or something, did this thing, and they said to us is this cup, full? It was an empty cup. And we're like, no, it's empty. So then they put a bunch of marbles in the cup. Is the cup full? And everyone's like, yeah, it's full. They're like, is it? And then they put these small little beads in the cup, and it started filling up more. I'm like, whoa, now it's for sure full. Are you sure? And they took these tiny little silver beads, and they put, whoa, it's packed. It's mamish full. Are you sure? And then they put sand in. Oh my goodness, now it's full. Are you sure? And they put water in. And oh my goodness. And it opened up our mind. Okay, full, but is there still space? It could be more full. Water will always find its way to go all the way down. It will find its way going down. So if Hashem removes the wind, okay, what's going to happen to the walls of water in the Yam Suf? They're going to go down. So let's just understand something for a second. Everything in creation has two elements. There's the thing itself that's created, but then there's the properties of the thing itself. Okay? There's the thing, and then there's the properties that that thing has. So for example, does God need to bring constant wind that this building should stay standing? That the kotel should stay standing? Do you need constant wind? Good thing it's a windy day, the kotel will stand. No, because the properties of stones are that they don't rush down. But if you walked outside and you saw a wall of water, is the property of water to just be hanging out there as a wall of water? Or is the property of water to go down? To go down, right? Therefore, the only thing that's keeping the wall of water up was the wind. But if God were to remove his wind for a second, the property of this item would go back to the way that it was created, that it was fashioned. The water has the property that goes down. Okay, pay attention. V'loi kamu k'chayma, bli safek. It would not exist anymore. Af shehateva hazeh b'mayim, gam kein nivra. Okay, this is important. Is the fact that God, when he made water, that the properties of water are such that they rush downwards, is that a creation?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, could God have made water like the properties of stone, that it doesn't go down? Yeah. God could have made any properties he wanted. But he made the properties of water that water goes down. So even though that God created the property in water, God right now is suspending that because he's bringing wind to keep the property of downwardness, taking it down and pushing it up. Okay? What the Baal Tanya is doing right now is he's telling you the following. If you need constant God involvement to keep water from going downwards, which is just a property of water. It's not even water itself. It's just something that God encoded into water. Certainly, here's the Kal V'chomer, certainly God's constant involvement is needed to keep water in existence. If the properties of water need constant input, or they're going to go back to the natural state, then the natural state of any creation is to be gone from creation, like the rock going down. And therefore, if God is giving constant input to suspend a property of water, certainly to keep the whole thing going, he's giving constant input. Okay? So now let's see this in the words. B'mayim gam kein nivra mechudish, yesh ma'ayin, that's also a nivra, the property of water. Shahari chaymes avonim, nitzavis me'atzma. A wall of stones stand on their own. B'li ruach. Rak sheteva hamayim ein okay. The way of water is not such. And therefore, if God is keeping water moving upwards, suspending its properties, certainly to keep water in existence, there needs to be God. The kol shekain v'kal v'chaymer, bebrias yesh me'ayin. Yesh me'ayin, shehu lamala min hateva. Yesh ma'ayin is above this world. V'hifli v'pele yoysa me'kriyas yamsuf. If Kriyas Yamsuf is just keeping the properties of the physical world in action, and God is needed there to suspend the property of water from going downwards, and it needs God, certainly to come into existence it needs God. All the more so it needs God. So any type of creation coming from nothing to something, there's obvious that needs a lot of God input. You got to meditate on these ideas. Al achas kama v'kama shebistalkus koyach haboyre min hanivra chas v'shalom. All the more so, if God were to withdraw his power from the creation, chas v'shalom, God forbid, Yishuv hanivra la'ayin ve'efes mamish. Then the creation would go back to nothingness, mamish. If water is already something, and water will just, the properties of water will completely revert back without God's constant input. And certainly to create the thing in the first place, you need constant input. Okay, this line is so mega. This is like the line. Ella, rather, what is the nature of creation? Sarach liyos koyach hapoyel benifal tamid. This line is so moving. You always need the action, the power of the doer, the causal, in the effect. There's no such thing as cause and effect. The causer is always inside the effect. Okay? Cause and effect would be like me, I caused there to be a vessel, and then I could walk away from the vessel. No, but that's only something from something. You could have cause and effect. In the world of something from something, there's cause and effect, and you could divorce the two of them. But in the world of something from nothing, there needs to be constant input. You always need to have the causer in the effect at all times. He can never remove himself, or there would be no effect. It would be gone. The causer and the effect are one thing. The effect is an extension of the cause and wrapped up and bound up in the cause.
Is that like speech, kind of?
Yes. So, but with us, when we speak, it, so to speak, pardon the pun, can leave the body and it's gone. But when we talk about Hashem, his speech, it never really leaves him because there's nothing but Hashem. Hashem is just extending, he's spreading, he's revealing himself. He's revealing himself. And in the revealing, he doesn't lose anything. He doesn't lose anything. The only thing that changes is from the perspective of the creation. Now we have this feeling like we're this independent existence. But if you stop and think about this stuff, you realize literally we have no existence without Hashem. Hashem is willing us into creation every single second. Every single second. And if it wasn't, the creation, God forbid, would just revert back to nothingness. It needs constant input of the poyel benifal. Lachayoisoi lakaimoi. And how do we do that? Hein bechinas oisius hadibur. Like we mentioned, these are the Asara Ma'amaras. Like the quantum physicists are explaining that the way they see the fabric of reality is information. Information. Did you ever be on your computer one time and you type something and whoops, and all of a sudden you see this code? What is that?
Yeah.
And it's somehow it's like the code. You ever seen somebody coding a website?
Yeah.
And it's gibberish? What is that? And he's like, no, you don't see that? It's a sunset. It's a sun. Let's imagine ones and zeros. What is that? It's a language. We just don't know the language. But it's a code. And it's amazing because when you look in the back end of a website, coders, it's crazy. They see that's what the Matrix, one of the things they got right, is all these letters and these numbers. So they got it right, but it's not just numbers, it's letters. The numbers are the gematrias. It's letters. Is that if you see the letters properly, you see sunsets, you see blessings, you see, God forbid, the opposite. You see it all in the letters. And that's the Ralah Sha'arim, is you move these letters around and you start creating the fabric of reality. Okay, that's what's going on here. So these things are creating the fabric of reality, and it's the Hebrew letters that are giving life to all existence. The difference is when we speak, the speech leaves us, but it's a good analogy because it's teaching you that speech is something that you're beginning with something that's inside you, and then you reveal outwards. And God's speech is the same thing, that which was inside of Hashem, and then he reveals himself, i.e. that's creation. He's exposing what's happening inside of God, so to speak. That's speech. And those are the letters that are in every facet of existence. And if God were to literally stop that speech, which means he contracts it back into him, then things stop to exist. You know, the Kabbalists describe a very interesting phenomenon, which is when you look in the Torah, there's one thing that seems to be missing from the creation narrative. One very important element. There's no like Vayehi. Let there be. What's something, you know, it's pretty important.
Air.
Well, air is pretty important. We have Shemayim.
Fire.
Is water. The Mekubalim point out, it doesn't say anywhere, let there be water. Let there be water. So one explanation, it's just all of a sudden there's water.
Yeah, there's just water, right?
There's just water, right? Like, where'd that come from?
You just separated the water.
Yeah,
Like,
where did it come from?
It doesn't even say in Bereshis before Hashem even separated the light and the darkness from each other, that he was like hovering above
the water.
Where did it come from?
Yeah.
That's what I'm wondering too.
Bereshis bar Elokim eisa shamayim ve'esa haaretz. Va'aretz ha'isa soyev avoy. Ruach Elokim merachevas al panei hamayim. Where'd the mayim come from? So one answer is that Shemayim is called Eshumayim. The Gemara says that that's right. So it's inside of Shemayim.
So he was hovering above the deep, right?
Pnei hamayim. Pnei hamayim, on the face of the waters. Okay? So the Mekubalim, though, say a very fascinating thing. They say that water is a substance that's a bit before creation, but after creation. It's the in-between stage in the first steps of creation before full creation. It's like a half step before creation. Is water. Part in the mikvah? Is your good? Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's like the water is always associated with a lot of holiness and purification. Like a child being born is coming out of a water medium, going into the mikvah. So water is like, so to speak, it's before creation, so it's like very much part of this pre-creation world, but it's also something. So many of the Mekubalim explain this week's parsha, Noah's Ark, that when the world begins to become filled with evil and filled with immorality, that Hashem had to restart, that he had to recreate the world, and he brought a flood. And only Noach, who was a tzaddik, Noach, who's righteous, the world will start with Noach, because Noach stood up for morality, especially sexual morality and purity. So the Mekubalim say a very interesting thing. God didn't quite destroy the world. What did he do? He contracted inwards and took the world one half step before creation, which was what? Water. So Hashem, so to speak, said, I need to remove creation. How does that happen? Remember we said, God contracts back in all the speech. So as God was removing, meaning things were being destroyed through the flood, Hashem did that by literally contracting in, moving back to pre-creation. He didn't fully go all the way, but he went one step before creation, which is water. Very fascinating. And then in this pre-creation reality is a Noah. Is Noach, which is an amazing thing. So he's like living pre-creation in a teva. Teva's Noach, which is Esha Torah. This is the ark of Noach Weinberg. Mamish. able to withstand in the merit of Torah and purity and goodness. Yes, Yankel.
Why did it have to take 40 days? Could God have done it like overnight, like an overnight flood, and then
40 days is always a certain tshuva period. It's like it's the creation of a fetus. It's 40 days. 40 days is a very important time. Being on the mountain.
Is that the same reason why you're supposed to read Tikkun Klali for like at least 40 days?
That's right. From the beginning of Rosh Chodesh Elul until Yom Kippur. 40 days is a full cycle of the creation of an entity. So after 40 days, a child is very strongly built in the mother's womb, which is about the same time that it takes for the heartbeat to start seeing a heartbeat. You can already start seeing the heartbeat, 40 days. It's a very powerful thing. Okay, so in summary, what do we have? Hashem is now showing us there's a need for constant creation, and Hashem has to be constantly involved in the creation. One more line. And this is what it means. Hashem, you give life to everything. Al tikra mechaya, you give life. Ela mehave, you give existence. Dahainu yesh me'ayin. So look at that pasuk. Ata mechayis kulam, you give life to everything. What's being hinted to in the pasuk? Ve'ata, what does ata mean? You. Hey, it means you, but look at the letters. Aleph, Saf, and Hey. Hein bechinis oisius. These are the letters. Aleph, me'aleph, ve'ad taf. From an aleph to a taf, right? Ata is aleph to taf. That's all the 22 letters. Ata, you give life to everything from aleph to taf. And the Hey is the 5 utterances of speech. The 5 ways that speech is delineated. As opposed to kol, like we learned, kol is like the shofar. Kol is just undelineated cry, whereas speech uses the tongue, the lips, the guttural, the throat, the teeth, to break up the sound, to allow letters to form. And that's why the 22 Hebrew letters are all based on different parts of the mouth where they are being formed from. Even though it might sound the same to an aleph and an ayin is pronounced ayin as a guttural. You need like a that's right, ayin, and an aleph like is almost silent, and a hey and a daled different parts of the mouth are breaking up the kol in different ways. So that's what it means. Ata Hashem, you are machayis kulam. But how are you doing that? From the aleph to the taf through the hey motzoi sapeh. You also have these 5 ways that you're breaking up, so to speak, the creation into the 22 letters. Okay, we're going to pick up tomorrow from Ata mechayis kulam. We should be zeicha mamish to shalom. We should be zeicha to Beis Hamikdash. Mashiach tzidkeinu b'mhira v'yameinu. Amen. Kol tuv.